Rogues are a type of AI that were introduced to Tarkov with its latest map, Lighthouse, and they're a great source of good gear and XP, and now that it's been about a month or so since they were added, I've had enough time to devise a strategy on how to take them out and farm them, and it's surprisingly easy once you know how they behave and where they spawn. In this video, I'll go through everything I do to take them out in about 4 minutes with a roughly 90% success rate. I'll go through what kit to use, where they spawn, where to take them from, what routes to take, and everything else that I've learned about clearing out the water treatment plant on Lighthouse. I'd also like to mention that I'm playing this wipe as a bear, meaning that the rogues instantly aggro me, unlike USEC PMCs. So if you're also playing as a bear, this video should be especially helpful. If you'd like to skip around to different parts of the video, the timestamps are in the description down below. And last thing before the video starts, I'd like to quickly say that if you happen to learn something from this video, or it helps you out, please consider dropping a like because my wife told me that if I get enough likes, I wouldn't have to sleep on the couch for the next month. Anyway, now onto the video. The first thing we'll take a look at is where the rogues spawn. As you can see by this map of the water treatment plant, I've marked guaranteed rogue spawns in red dots and dynamic rogue spawns in yellow zones. What I mean by dynamic spawns is that there's a chance that they just don't spawn there, but there's also a chance that they spawn in both zones at the same time. A bit confusing, I know. In Zone 1, you can have a maximum of 3 rogues, and in Zone 2, you can have a maximum of 4. All the red dots are straightforward. You've got 2 rogues at the front of the water treatment plant, 2 rogues on the building behind them, 2 rogues on the building towards the mountain, and finally 3 rogues on the building towards the train yard. As for the loadout that I use the SV98 that I buy from Prapor level 3. If you don't have Prapor level 3 yet, there's a barter for 8 packs of cigarettes from Prapor level 2. For the scope, I use the KMZ IP69 3x10 scope, because having a high-powered scope comes in very handy when hitting those longer shots. And it's also pretty cheap from the flea market. For the ammo, I use LPS GZH because it's cheap, and let's be honest, it doesn't really matter what ammo you use, it's all pretty good. Also, you can buy LPS from Fence for about 100 rubles cheaper than the flea market and traders. And then as a secondary, I usually just use an SMG, shotgun, or pistol depending on what I have in my stash, but you can honestly use whatever you want. A quick disclaimer, you'll most likely die a few times while you get a feel for how exactly to take out the rogues, but don't let that discourage you. Just like anything else, you need to practice it for a few raids, since this video isn't a substitute for the experience of taking out the rogues, just the information that you need to do so. Alright, so in order to safely clear out the water treatment plant, you'll need to come up to this mountain to the east of the plant. Once up here, I suggest crouching on this rock and trying to spot the rogues that are in Zone 1. I would advise against proning, since if they spot you before you spot them, you might be a bit too slow getting to cover and you could get Swiss cheesed. To take out the rogues in Zone 1, look for them in and around the 2 circles. They're usually stationary, but you can catch them running around too. Once you spot them, zero your scope to 50 meters and aim for the middle of their foreheads. Don't forget to hold your breath for a more stable shot. Once those 3 are down, you'll have to take out the ones on the roofs. I usually start with taking out the ones on top of the building towards the mountain, also referred to as Building 3. From where you are, use this path that I'm showing you now to get to the lake. Find this rock formation behind these 3 trees and crouch. This part is going to get a bit confusing because there are 3 different scenarios that can happen, and I'm going to show every scenario, so pay attention. The first scenario is that there is a rogue standing next to the gunner, and the gunner does not react to that rogue's death. The second scenario is that there's a rogue standing next to the gunner, and the gunner does react to that rogue's death. And finally, the last scenario is that there is no rogue next to the gunner, and instead he's somewhere else on the roof. If it's scenario 1, zero your sight to 50 meters, peek over the rock just enough to see where the standing rogue is, and shoot at his eyes. Next, keeping your sight 0 to 50 meters and aiming at the top of his head, take out the rogue on the southwestern corner of Building 2, also known as the one towards the train yard. Once you've done that, peek through these branches and do the same for the rogue on the machine gun. Finally, scoot just enough to the left to see the front of the gunner's head on building 3. If it's scenario 2, take out the standing rogue as previously described. The gunner will then get off of his gun and stand somewhere nearby. Once again, 0 to 50 meters and aim at his eyes. Then, similar to the first scenario, aim for the top of the head of the rogue on the southwestern corner of building 2. Finally, look through the branches of this tree, aim for the forehead of the gunner, and take him out. Lastly, scenario 3. For this one, take out the rogue on the southwestern corner of building 2 first. Then, looking through the branches, take out the gunner on building 2 that's looking towards the mountain. Now you can scoot to the left just enough to see the front of the gunner's head on building 3. Finally, you'll need to take out the standing rogue, which is annoying since he can be in multiple places. He can be standing towards the mountain, he can be standing towards the rest of the water treatment plant, or he can come back and stand next to the machine gun. If he's standing towards the mountain, come to the rock shown in the video and you should be able to see him from here. He should be right up against those air conditioning units or those ones right there. If he's towards the rest of the plant, come around to these rocks as I'm showing now in the video, and you should be able to see him behind the 2 air conditioning units. Finally, he can come and stand by the gunner. And to take him out if that happens, once you kill the gunner, fall back behind the rock and wait for about 15 seconds. That'll give him enough time to wander back and you can just peek over the rock and take him out. Also keep in mind that there's a gunner at the back of building 2 facing the train yard. He usually stays on his gun, but he can get off to roam around on the roof or take over another gun. If you want to take him out, come to the rock on the right next to the path that leads down towards the water treatment plant, 0 to 50 meters, aim at his receding hairline, and take the shot. I should also mention that there's a chance that the gunner on building 3 faces more towards the mountain, and if that's the case, take him out first instead of the standing rogue in the first 2 scenarios. Now you'll need to take out the 2 gunners on top of building 1. Go back to where you initially fought the rogues in zone 1 and go prone. For the gunner on the south, 0 to 350 meters and aim for the middle of his head. For the gunner on the north, do the same, just aim a smidge higher. Once the last gunner on building 1 is dead, do one final check of the front to see if the front gunners are still alive and if there are any player scavs or PMCs walking around down there. If you want to take out the front gunners, you can do that now. For the one in the back, 0 to 350 meters and aim for the nose. For the one that's closer to you, 0 to 300 meters and aim for the middle of the head. At this point, I usually toss my sniper for insurance because there's no real use for it down in the treatment plant, and to get down, just follow the path that I'm showing you here. Be sure to avoid this minefield. By the way, there's a moonshine spawn on these crates over there. Alright, to take out the rogues in zone 2, it's a bit more complicated, but at the same time, it's pretty much the same process. First of all, you need to check that the rogues are actually in zone 2, and to do that, it's very easy. If they're not in zone 1, they're in zone 2. We're going to start off by taking out the rogues on buildings 2 and 3, and since I don't feel like explaining that stuff again, just go back to the timestamps that are on the screen now, and follow that. It's the exact same process. Now you'll have to eliminate the 4 rogues down on the ground. The position that you'll want to be in for this is on the edge of the rocks, right next to the path that leads down, as shown here. They most commonly chill on the left side of the building, but they sometimes roam around the back and inside. So if you don't see them on the left, give them a minute or 2 and they should come back around. Once they're there, you'll have to be careful because they can and will shoot at you if you stay exposed for too long. Once again, zero your sight to 50 meters and aim for the top of their heads. 4 shots and they should all be taken care of. The last thing you'll want to do is zero your sight to 300 meters and take out the gunner on the right side of building 1. I don't usually check for player scavs since they mainly spawn on the south side of the map, but if you'd like, you can. To get down to the loot, take this path on the right like I'm showing here. Alright, well, that's all I have for this video. I'm sorry that it took so long to get out. I had to rewrite the script like 3 times over the course of 3 weeks because I kept discovering new things about the rogues. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed and learned how to clear the water treatment plant. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you could consider dropping a like. If anything was confusing or you just have questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments or in my Discord. If you'd like to see more Tarkov content from me, subscribing is free, and I stream on Twitch fairly often, so if you'd like to check it out, the link is in the description. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and don't get fucking Swiss cheesed.